A few months ago, I watched this movie on Netflix called Fruitvale Station. I'll be honest, the only reason why I clicked on it was because it was directed by Ryan Coogler, same dude who directed Black Panther, which I'd literally just seen a few days before. So, I watched the movie and I was hooked. I was hooked after the first few minutes, I was hooked during the final minutes, and I was hooked days later. It was stuck on my mind. I realized that this movie had had a serious impact on me, probably why it's won so many awards. If you're unfamiliar with Fruitvale Station, let me give you a quick rundown. Fruitvale Station is a biographical drama that's fancy for a drama based on a real story that follows the last day of Oscar Grant, who was shot and killed by a BART police officer in 2009, an incident that has become a prime example of police brutality and racial injustice. The film explores Oscar's flaws, his attempts at redemption, his relationships, and the effects of his death on those who loved him the most. It's a truly moving film that effectively makes you feel like Oscar was a real person. Watching the film, there was one scene in particular that really struck me. It happens when Oscar is going about his day, getting gasoline. A stray dog makes its way over to him, and here's what happens next.
What's up, boy? Slow down, you bitch motherfucker! Slow down! What's up, bro? What's up, bro? It's all right, bro. It's all right. It's all right, bro. It's all right, bro. You with me, bro? Come on. Come on, bro. Come on. Somebody help!
There's a lot going on in this scene. It's sad and unexpected. I mean, who doesn't love dogs? And that's why audiences resonate with it so immediately. There's a lot to analyze here, but the two things that stuck out to me the most are its uses of symbolism and foreshadowing. First off, the biggest symbol in the scene is obviously the dog. The stray dog represents Oscar. Like Oscar, he's an outcast, and he's on his own. He's innocent. Looking at the way Oscar treats the dog, this connection seemed to be naturally apparent. I think this scene is pretty cool because it shows Oscar having this really warm moment with basically himself, but in dog form, all while showing us his good side and a reason to cheer for him, despite his flaws, which are explored in the rest of the film. The idea of the dog being symbolic of Oscar is explored further when the dog dies. Watching this scene and knowing where the plot is going, you immediately start to draw parallels between this dog's death and the eventual death of Oscar himself. For us, the audience, the dog's death is sad because of the dog's innocence and the brutality and carelessness with which it is killed. And looking back on it now, this echoes the same feelings we feel witnessing Oscar's death later in the film. I thought it was really heartbreaking when Oscar was kneeling there on the road, shouting for help, completely devastated by the death of the dog. His reaction seems to mirror the feelings that we will later feel in the film during his death. And what that does is add to this layer of relatability that we have with the character, which Coogler works so hard to create. In this scene, tension is created with sound. Even when Oscar is playing with the dog, you hear this distorted, eerie music in the background. Something is up, something is coming. You're immediately on edge. Then you hear the police sirens in the distance. I actually didn't notice this when I first watched the film, but it definitely adds to the nervous tension of the scene. Going back to symbolism real quick, the fading sirens also seem to symbolize how the police and the justice system don't really do much to help with the countless cases that are similar to Oscar's. I'm pretty sure that we've all felt that uncomfortable feeling and that nervousness when we hear a police siren. And that's exactly what Coogler is making us feel here. He's got us hooked. And then he hits us with the death. The tension comes crashing down in heartbreak. Then there's the last few frames of the scene. This shot was engraved in my mind for days. In the foreground, we have the dog dead in the middle of the shot, representing Oscar's future. In the middle, Oscar is going about his business, filling up his car, and above and behind him, a BART train goes by. Its sound is clear and resonant. It gives you chills. The BART train and the uneasy sound it creates, paired with the body of the dog, all foreshadow Oscar's death at Fruitvale Station later that night. The train is what haunts me the most, because I think it's supposed to be depicted as this looming object or idea, like death himself coming for Oscar. After seeing Oscar treat the dog so kindly, we are reminded that this guy is going to die soon, and the placement of these emotional cues is intentional because it creates dramatic irony and makes a tragedy all the more bitter and sad. There's actually a lot of dramatic irony in this film, like when Oscar's mom gives him the idea to take the BART in the first place, and it's really heartbreaking, but that's a whole other video. In my opinion, Fruitvale Station is a beautiful and powerful movie. I love this one quote from Ryan Coogler that goes something like this: "I wanted to show his flaws because I think that's how people connect with characters. They see them going through struggles and they can empathize because they're struggling too." Oscar is a flawed hero, but realistically, everyone is. I think Coogler succeeded in straying away from the idea of seeing Oscar as a symbol and guiding us into seeing him as a person, because that's what makes the tragedy more personal and more impactful. For me, Coogler's ability to do that is extremely inspiring. I want to make movies when I grow older, and I want to be like Coogler in that I want to make movies that can move people in important and impactful ways. And while that requires some knowledge on how to pull at the heartstrings of audiences, which this movie and this scene shows Coogler's complete mastery over, I think that filmmakers should focus on choosing and creating stories filled with characters who feel real and characters who are imperfect, because those are the characters who are most like us, and those are the stories that impact us the most.